We're here at the Fortuna High School Gymnasium. We just had a congressional candidates debate between 9 candidates running for the new North Coast District for U.S. Congress. And right here we have Andy Caffrey to my right. We have William Courtney, Jared Huffman to my left, the other candidates milling about, speaking with members of the public. And here's Andy Caffrey.
How are you, Charles?
I'm doing all right. Andy, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks.
So how do you think tonight's forum went?
Boy, it seemed a bit chaotic. I really hate these 6-minute debates. That's all we got, each of us, about 6 minutes to talk, an hour. And it just, you feel like you're gypping the audience. You're not really painting a picture of yourself. But as far as how we did, I think everyone's pretty strong. Most of the debates are pretty similar. I think I clearly pointed out that my program is different. It's not a reform program. It's more of a fundamental program, like green politics is more about dealing with the fundamentals of what's wrong with our society and with the ecology, too.
And did you think the actual issues as far as foreign policy and our adventurism overseas were really addressed?
No. It's such an important issue, and it was part of one answer, part of the closing if we wanted to. So we only got 15 seconds or nothing to talk about it.
And it seems like the big divide in this district is really water politics between the water-rich north and Sonoma and Marin counties, which tend to steal or take, depending on your perspective, a lot of the Eel River water. When do you think that's actually going to come up and be an issue?
It's actually already come up in previous debates, and we were asked, when it comes down to the grapes or the fish, which side are you on? Well, I'm with the fish, no doubt.
Andy Caffrey, Humboldt County's only candidate for U.S. Congress in the new North Coast District. Thanks for joining us.
You bet. Please vote. Thank you.
I support Prop 215. I think the problem is we don't have really good regulations to make it work well right now, and so it's kind of become a bit of a charade. So we've got to fix that, and local governments can do it. State probably needs to step in and do something that's uniform across the state. If we can do that well, what I would do in Congress is I'd go to the federal government and say, leave these people alone. The ones that are coming out of the shadows, doing it right, leave them alone.
Well, you have so many states that have legalized it on another area.
Yeah, Colorado.
But then we have the Department of Justice and President Obama that's coming out.
So what do you think of tonight's forum in Fortuna?
It was a terrific forum. There's a great turnout by the community. Lots of students here from Fortuna High. I thought that was exciting. Lots of seniors that are going to be voting for the first time. Part of their class project, they're here talking to the candidates. So that's great. The format's tough when you have this many candidates and you're trying to do it, within a couple of hours. You end up with these 1-minute answers, which really don't let you go as deep as sometimes I would like to go. But if folks want to go to jaredhuffman.com or email me, it's on my website. I will answer any specific question in any policy area that you'd like, and we'll follow up from there.
Well, as far as the 4 questions we had tonight, they seem to all center on domestic policy. We didn't hear much about U.S. adventurism overseas, where the candidates stand on that. What's your take in a nutshell?
I want to end this war in Afghanistan much faster than it's being drawn down. So I will push hard for that. I opposed Iraq. I want to see us reduce our military budget. Our global deployments around the world are still left over from a Cold War that's been over for a couple decades. We have a great opportunity, I think, to, while taking care of our true national security interests, dramatically save money by doing that. And that's a huge part of how we're going to pay down this debt and get this economy going so that our productivity is going more into jobs and making things that are productive instead of all these weapon systems and forward deployments around the world.
Do you have the same take as far as Libya?
I think Congress should have been involved in Libya. I think the president had a tough call there. There was a humanitarian crisis, but that should have been a joint decision. And in Congress, I will definitely insist that Congress be part of those decisions.
And lastly, the one thing that didn't seem to come up so much today is the water question. And it seems like that's the real division in the district between the water-rich north and Sonoma and Marin counties that depend on taking water from the Eel River. Where do you come down on that?
Well, I'm the only candidate that's actually put my career into trying to make that part of the district more water independent so they don't need to import as much water. So I spent 12 years on the Marin Municipal Water District Board, and I ran for that to fight against a pipeline to take North Coast water. I continue to believe that Marin County needs to be more water independent and not reliant on imported water from coastal watersheds, and that'll be a huge part of the solution.
All right, Assemblymember Jared Huffman from San Rafael, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We're here in the aftermath of the Fortuna Candidates Forum at Fortuna High School, and with me right now is entrepreneur Stacey Lawson. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. It was a great forum tonight.
That's what I wanted to ask. How do you think things turned out? Did you have enough time to really get your points across?
You know, actually, in 1 minute, it's very hard to sort of frame an issue and to share something substantive. So we do our best to get in an answer that can resonate with the crowd. But it's always nice to have a little bit longer to talk about the issues.
And as far as our U.S. adventurism overseas, as someone characterized it, it didn't seem like there was too many questions about that. Where do you come down as far as foreign policy?
I think we need to be bringing monies home to invest in our local economy. So we spend right now 45% of the world's spend on war. We're forward deployed in over 130 countries, in countries that many of us couldn't even pronounce the name of. It's really important that we actually start to streamline our military budget and bring those funds back to invest in things like education, in job creation, and making sure that our middle class is strong and has a path forward to prosperity.
And as far as the campaign in Libya last year, what was your opinion of that?
I think we should be using in all situations our diplomatic and economic force before our military force. That using sanctions, economic and otherwise, we've seen are working in places like Iran in order to get them to respond to our protests around their nuclear armament. And I think we need to be using those everywhere that's humanly possible as opposed to taking military action.
And final question, the question of water politics. The real divide in this district seems to be between the water-rich North and Sonoma-Marin counties that depend on taking water from our Eel River here in Humboldt County. Where do you come down on that issue?
So I think that the very first thing that needs to be on our agenda is environmental protection, making sure that we're preserving our stream flows and our salmon population and our other species population at the levels that we need to preserve them. So for me, restoring flows to the Eel River, doing things like taking out the Klamath dams to make sure we're restoring our water flows there. Those are really critical projects that will help us have a sustainable path forward and make sure that we're protecting our environment and our species.
All right, Stacey Lawson, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Good to be with you all. Take care.
So, Mr. Roberts, here we are in the aftermath of the Fortuna Candidate Forum. How do you think things went for you?
Well, I made my points and I showed a different view on most subjects, the conservative view.
Do you expect to be the only Republican who files to run in this race?
I think there is one other who might join the race.
And in general, where do you come down as far as foreign policy? It didn't seem like a lot of the candidates got into that. Most of the questions were about domestic policy. Yeah. Do you see there's a sense of U.S. adventurism overseas?
Yeah, well, that's what I raised the issue because I'm the only veteran who's running. So I came back and I came back semi-whole, but not entirely. So I know the personal cost of our wars of adventure.
And in particular, the campaign in Libya last year seemed to divide folks on the left and the right. So where'd you come down on that?
Well, I tell you, if they're allowing democracy to flourish, which is the going-in position, it's a messy proposition because we don't know what the eventual outcome is going to be. So it's dangerous and it's messy, but I think it's healthy for them, including Syria and the other nation states over there.
And final question, as far as the real divide in the district in terms of water policy, the water-rich North and Sonoma-Marin, which depend on water donations, or you could call it something else, from the Eel River, where do you come down on water politics?
Yeah, I've studied water policy for a long time. It's been an issue in California. For most of California is an arid region. And what we've done and allowed to happen is an overdevelopment of everything. I would say south of San Francisco. And now it's dependent upon the water, right? But they have the votes down there. So it's going to be a continual struggle and a trade-off between the environment and the build-out.
All right, Dan Roberts here at the Fortuna High School Gymnasium. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for doing this. Appreciate it so much.
We're here in the aftermath of the Fortuna Campaign Forum with Marin County Supervisor Susan Adams. Thanks so much for joining us.
Sure, it's great being here.
And Susan, how do you think you fared in tonight's forum with, 8 other candidates on the stage?
Well, I felt like I had the home team advantage here because I rooted for my nephews when they were playing football for the Huskies, and I think that it was a really great turnout. I'm so glad to see that so many people are getting excited and engaged in the democratic process, because our democracy is only as healthy as people engage themselves.
And one issue that didn't come up, since most of the questions are about domestic politics, is about U.S. adventurism overseas. So where do you come down on foreign policy questions?
Well, I mean, first of all, having a brother who served 7 tours overseas since September 11th, who's recently retired after 26 years of service, it's time to bring our men and women home. We don't need to be the police officers for the whole world. I think we need to have a cooperation from all of our partners in sharing, in pressuring the neighbors who are not so inclined to want to live peacefully with each other to maybe rethink things. And I think that one of the concerns that I have is that when we have 2 million veterans coming back home to our communities, they're going to have a lot of needs, and some of them have apparent physical disabilities, but some of them don't have the apparent disabilities that are physical. And our next wave of homeless, mentally ill people are just waiting to come on board. So we owe our veterans the ability to help them with the glide path and reintegration back into civilian life again. I think that there's a lot that can be done with diplomacy. A number of my supporters are already working in areas like Heidi Kuhn with Roots of Peace, who's removing landmines and replanting crops and helping to develop a sustainable agriculture so that people have a way to live and support their children and their families. And I think that's the commonality that we all share as humans, is that we want a safe place to live, we want enough food to feed our families, we want a livelihood that helps us to do that. And I think the skills that I've been developing over the course of my 33 years in healthcare and also in my last 10 years as a policymaker have given me the skills that I need to be effective in no matter what venue I venture into.
As far as the venue of water here in North Coast, it seems like the real divide in this district is between water-rich North and Sonoma-Marin counties that depend on Eel River water from up here. Where do you come down on water politics?
Well, water is people have been fighting over water rights since beginning of time when the Europeans first landed. I think that with water issues, we need to take a very careful approach to look at all of the different interests, whether it's the resources, restoring our fisheries, our tribal interests, and sometimes the tribes haven't been included in those discussions. I think the issue with the Klamath dams, removing the Klamath dams, I'm hearing a lot of support for that, but there is also some trepidation about what happens when those dams come down. How do we manage them? How do we decide where those allocations of resources are going to go? In our county, you mentioned the southern part taking resources. Actually, we've done some very proactive programs that require, if anybody's building, that they have to institute zero net water gains if they're having large facilities that they're creating. So piping up with reclaimed water for irrigation and doing rain catchment and storage and having low flow or zero flow flush toilets. So those are the kinds of things that we've been implementing, and we're seeing actually some really great efforts in the conservation piece, which means you don't have to use as much resources. Does that mean all the lawns are gone yet? No, not yet, but I think we've been making some good progress.
All right, again, we're here in Fortuna at the high school with Susan Adams and the rest of the congressional candidates in the new North Coast District. Susan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
John Lewallen, I believe, of Mendocino County.
That's right.
And how do you think you did in tonight's forum, John?
I had a great time, my friend. It's just good to be able to speak to people about the issues that are of the deepest concern to me. It's a tremendous privilege to be able to do this. And we have that much democracy, so that at least I get a chance, to address people and to put my name on the ballot. And if enough people like my message, and they can go to johnlewallenforcongress.org and take a look at it, even on a modest budget, the kind of money that a hand harvester of wild seaweed makes, I might be able to be elected to the U.S. Congress. And even if I'm not elected, I can tell you about the issues of peace conversion that I'm concerned about, of defending our water resources here on the North Coast, defending the livelihoods of the small fishermen and farmers, the things that I spend my lifetime on outside of government. I'm able to get up here and tell the world about it and possibly even be elected to Congress.
So as far as the issues that came up here, it seemed mostly centered on domestic policy. What about foreign policy and what some say is U.S. adventurism overseas? Where do you come down on U.S. foreign policy?
I'm strongly against American militarism and imperialism around the world. I think that this is a catastrophic policy where we try to rule the world, having bases in something like 130 countries, having a policy of full spectrum dominance. This is a suicidal policy. Right now, the defense budget, so-called, is over $600 billion. It seems to be out of the control of any institution, but we've got to try to control it. If we don't control it, it will eat all of our resources and lead us into global war. This feeling is the primary reason I got into running for Congress. It's a very uncomfortable thing for me to do as a man of 69 years without much money going around running for Congress. But I've studied quite a bit of the military problems of America. I think that our space weapons program is leading toward war in space. You hardly ever hear about this, but we spend $9 billion a year making these space weapons, and if they ever become threatening to leading adversaries, they'll do something that's a whole lot cheaper that could completely collapse our civilization. So I advocate a complete ban on space weapons. We're using munitions around the world called depleted uranium. Bullets, bombs, and missiles made out of uranium. When these are used, they burn, and they make breathable uranium oxides. And if a person breathes these, it causes tremendous disease and damage, particularly to fetuses. We've poisoned whole nations with this. I've been working against this for years and years, primarily through Veterans for Peace.
Well, touching on environmental issues, it seems like the real divide in this new district is between the water-rich northern counties and Sonoma and Marin counties, which depend on taking or even stealing the water from here in the north. Where do you come down on water politics?
To me, the entire 1st Congressional District is a bioregion. There isn't any divide with Sonoma and Marin in my picture. The district runs from the Oregon border to the Golden Gate Bridge. And the restoration of our watersheds is something I've been meditating on a whole lot. I'm starting to see it as a living bioregion itself, and we all have the same interest. All of these, our entire Northern California has the basic issue of stopping the peripheral canal. This is a very simple scheme to take the whole Sacramento River drainage and run it with a canal past the San Francisco Bay Delta ecosystem down to Southern California, and not just to benefit people, but to benefit huge corporate agribusiness. And this will destroy one of the greatest ecosystems in the world, the Bay Delta ecosystem. And we all have an interest. We've got to stop that.
So, Mr. Lewallen, I really do want to thank you for joining us here today. Am I correct in assuming that you are probably the only independent candidate who's running in this race?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I have no party affiliation or strictly no party preference. I work with them all. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Lewallen, I do thank you for joining us today here at Fortuna High School.
All right. Good talking with you.
We're here at the Fortuna High School Candidate Forum with Dr. William Courtney of Mendocino County, who has quite the visual aid to show us. Dr. Courtney, what does this chart represent?
This chart represents the 7 of the known 80 cannabinoids that are found in cannabis. These are the cannabinoids that do not produce a psychoactive effect but have tremendous health benefits.
And is this sort of a symbol or a centerpiece of your campaign for Congress?
It is. I'm probably the world's expert on non-psychoactive use of the plant, and certainly Congress could use a little bit of insight on that cannabis has an awful lot of benefit. I mean, we know that because the United States has a patent on CBD, one of the molecules. The FDA is approving of that molecule at 600 milligrams a day, and the DEA is currently rescheduling it so that the pharmaceutical companies can take advantage of this plant while it remains a felony for the citizens, which is a situation that I believe needs to be rectified in Congress, and I'm the person that can do that.
So moving beyond cannabis policy, certainly the drug war has always been an issue here in the North Coast for as long as I can remember. Looking at domestic policy, moving to foreign policy, what about U.S. adventurism overseas? We didn't hear a lot about that tonight. Where do you come down on U.S. foreign policy?
The fact that we have troops in 131 countries is something that we can neither afford financially or morally. We are not the world's policemen. We need to participate with the world. So if there's an issue that requires address or redress, the world comes together and identifies that. We have to turn over some authority and a lot of the financial responsibility to the rest of the world because we just can't afford to carry that, particularly if we want to kind of salvage what's left of the domestic policy. We need to bring some of that funding back home so that we can keep our schools open, that we can provide insurance to the citizens, that we can educate them on how to maintain their health.
As far as what happened last year with the bombing of Libya, where did you come down on that?
Once again, we're rogue policemen. We need to join together with the rest of the world, and if there's a genocide in place, the whole world needs to move in and say this is just intolerable. And so we start acting alone, and then all of a sudden we've got our special interests, we got our oil companies that say, well, we should go in there and then remove their oil. We need to separate out our corporate interests from our moral interests, and we need to join the rest of the world when an act needs to be taken by everyone, not just by the United States.
So you're talking about the cannabis plant earlier. Well, one thing all plants require is water. We're water rich here in your home county, Mendocino County, here in Humboldt County. Sonoma and Marin counties, not so much, and they take quite a bit of our water to fund their agriculture and their populace. Where do you come down on the water divide in this new district and water politics here in the North Coast?
I believe that diverting the water so that we can either wash cars or build buildings where they don't belong is a problem. Water tables across the United States and across the whole world are dropping incredibly fast. We're going to need to kind of come up with a saner water policy, and the diversion is not the way to do it. I mean, you can't kill off the salmon, kill off industries so that you can continue to build in areas where there is no water. We need to pay attention to where the water is and regulate our growth to areas that are tolerable, as well as look at growth in general, because when you have other people that are walking 5 miles a day to get drinking water and we flush our toilets with more water than they drink with, we need to kind of become more sensitive to these issues because they're going to accelerate in the next 100 years in a crushing fashion.
All right, here at Fortuna High School Gymnasium with Dr. William Courtney. Thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure's mine. Thanks for having us.
And that's what these prospective politicians had to say here at Fortuna High School Gymnasium. The kids are back to practice, but the voters will get to decide this coming June who they're going to send to U.S. Congress to replace Mike Thompson. For all of us at Planet Humboldt, this is Charles Douglas saying good night and make sure to register and vote.